We had a look at a few different things on our sine and cosine graphs yesterday. Okay, we said the range is the interval on the y-axis from the lowest to the highest. So if you're looking for the range, this is what you're interested in. Okay, there's your range there. And it's given as an interval, so that means it's given like that. Okay, so that's what your range is. The highest and the lowest points on your y-axis. Okay, your midline of a trigonometric graph is a horizontal line which lies halfway between the highest and the lowest points. Okay, so my midline in this scenario would be here. And it's a horizontal line, so it's y equals something. In this scenario, it's y equals anywhere on this line. What's my y? 0. So the equation of that midline there would be y is 0. Okay? Because the distance from here to here is 1 and the distance from here to here is 1. Okay? So we're going halfway between 1 and minus 1, which is 0. The amplitude then is the distance between the midline and the max or min value of the graph. So this would be your amplitude. Or this could be your amplitude if you go down. Okay, the distance between the midline and the max or min value on the graph. And then we learned yesterday that the period is the shortest distance along the x-axis after which the graph repeats itself. Okay? So in this scenario here, that would be your period. Because after that it starts to repeat itself again. So your range, highest and lowest. Midline is halfway between the highest and lowest. Amplitude is from the midline up or down to the highest or lowest. And then period is the shortest distance along the x-axis before the graph starts to repeat itself. Okay, so that's just for our regular sine and cos graphs. What about if we're doing something to it, if we're adding a number, or if we're multiplying the angle by something? Okay, so we looked a little bit into this yesterday. Can I get rid of the board?
Can I take a photo of the graph?
Yeah. Okay, so in general, you have these related trigonometric graphs, okay? So I can add something on, I can multiply the function by something, I can multiply the angle by something, okay? So write this down for me. I'm just going to explain using the graph. There's no need for you to take down the graphs, okay? Okay, there's my y equals cos of x graph. Okay, you don't need to draw it, just have a look at it. What happens if I do y equals 1 plus cos of x? It moves up 1. So all your y values just move up 1. What does that do to the range? Like my range here is -1 to 1. If I've moved up 1, it increases by 1, doesn't it? It affects the range by whatever you've added or subtracted. Okay? So my range there from this one would be up to 2 and down to 0. Okay? So it affects the range by either adding a and taking a. Okay? Depending on whatever a is. That was when I was adding one. Now yesterday we said, what happens if I multiply my trigonometric function by something? Now, in this case, the b is here. So, 2 times sine of x or 3 times sine of x. So, looking at this one, the 2 cos of 2x, cos of 3x, sine of 2x, sine of 3x. What happened? The range, isn't it? Is it the range when I multiply? See, I'm either multiplying the function or I'm multiplying the angle. When I multiply the function, have you your sheet? Have a look. When I multiply the function, what happens? It's the range that changes. It's not your period. This, when I multiply the angle, it's the period that changes. Okay? So, let's write those things out. Okay? And this graph you can draw. So, I'm working with these numbers. I've got constants here, A, B, and C. If you have y equals a plus b sine c of x, y equals a is the midline, okay? The amplitude is, what does this mean? Yeah, the absolute value of b or the modulus of b, okay? So, regardless of what b is, you're going to take the positive value of it. That's the amplitude, okay? Amplitude was from the midline up, wasn't it? Or down, okay? So, this is your amplitude. So how would I find that max point? If this is my midline, y equals a, what would this be up here? The max point would be a plus the modulus of b. The min point would be down here, a minus the modulus of b. Okay, so sometimes they give us this equation with numbers in it and they can ask us certain things about it. So these are things we need to learn off. So y equals a is your midline. That tells you your midline. The amplitude is b. So the amplitude allows you to get your max and your min. Okay.
Excuse me, please.
would Ella Jones-Burke come to reception now, please? Ella Jones-Burke.
What would the range be? The range is the highest to the lowest. Yeah, lovely. So this to this, you're going to start with the lowest value. Okay, A minus the absolute value of B and A plus the absolute value of B. And the period. Can you remember how we get the period? 360 over C, lovely. Whatever you're multiplying the angle by, 360 divided by C, or 2 pi over C. Okay, let's do an example of this. Learn this off, really important, okay? Can I get rid of the board? Okay, find the amplitude, midline equation, range, max and min, and period of the following function in terms of pi. Okay, so the amplitude, just turning back a page, that is the absolute value of, so remember this is A plus B sine C of x, okay, so they're the same. So A is 3, B is 2, and C is 2. Yeah? Okay. So, what's your amplitude going to be? Yeah. So the absolute value of B, which is just 2. Your midline equation, y is equal to a, so yeah, in this case y is equal to 3, lovely. Your range, so our range, we have to do a minus b, don't we? and A plus B. Okay, so 3 minus 2 and 3 plus 2. From that then, what's my max and min? So my max is 5 and my min would be 1. And my period. So we know the period is 2 pi over c. So in this scenario, 2 pi over 2, which is pi.
So do you know maximum? Is that just a coincidence? That's the same as the range? And that one?
No,
Does it always-
it'll always. Yeah, always. Because that's how you get your range, by going to the highest and the lowest. And that's what max and min are. Okay? Is that alright? Okay. Let's do another one. Can I get rid of the board? Okay, part of a sine graph is shown. They've just given you 2 points on the graph.
Is that -2.4?
Minus 2.4, 0.5. Yeah. Okay, so the midline value is that line in the middle, okay? And it's halfway between the highest and the lowest points. Okay, so you're going to add the highest and the lowest and you're going to divide it by 2. Is that alright? That's how you get your midline. So part 1. Okay. Your highest is 2.5 and your lowest is 0.5. So add them together, divide it by 2. That gets you your midline. Okay. So the midline value is 1.5. If they wanted the midline equation, it would be y equals 1.5. If we were trying to write the equation in the form y equals a plus b sine cx, your a would be 1.5. Is that okay? So you're just going to add your highest and your lowest y values and divide by 2 to get the midline. Part 2. The amplitude then we know is the distance from the midline to the highest value. Okay? So how am I going to find what the amplitude is? Highest value and then take away a. Lovely. So my highest value is 2.5 and I'm taking away. Okay, so that's 1. So we know the absolute value of b is 1. So what could be b? It could be minus 1 or plus 1. Now, if you remember, this is what we're working with. If I multiplied a function by minus 1, okay, it's going to reflect it. It's not going to look like a sine function, okay, it's going to be reflected through the x-axis, so it's going to be the opposite way. So I actually know that b in this case is 1, it's not minus 1. Okay, I'll show you that on GeoGebra in a minute, what happens when I multiply it by minus. Okay, so in this scenario I know that b is 1. Okay, it's not minus 1. It would be inverted if it was minus 1. Okay, and part 3 we want the period. So to get the period, what you can do is you can get the distance between these two. Okay, and what would you do with it then? Multiply it by 2, yeah. Okay, so you can get the distance So you're going to get the distance between the maximum points on the x-axis. So the distance, the x values, okay, the distance between the x values, okay?
And why multiply by 2?
Because we know that the period is where it starts to repeat again. It hasn't started to repeat between those two. But if I was to continue drawing it, okay, that distance would be the same, and it's after that that it starts to repeat again. Okay, so the distance between the highest and the lowest you multiply by 2 because that's the same distance from the highest to the lowest over here. Okay, yeah. So let's get the distance